You know, if you're watching this right now, there's a really good chance that you or maybe someone you love has just recently received an autism diagnosis for a child. And I just want to start by acknowledging the absolute emotional whirlwind that brings. You might be feeling confused or scared, relieved, motivated, or honestly, kind of all of the above at the exact same time. And that is incredibly valid. But I really want to reassure you right here at the start, you do not have to figure everything out all at once. Seriously, take a breath. This explainer is designed to be your guide. We're going to look at the facts, we'll break down those confusing clinical terms, and give you a super clear, actionable path forward so you can navigate this whole journey with confidence and, most importantly, compassion. Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our roadmap. Number 1, understanding ASD. 2, spotting the early signs. 3, sensory processing versus autism. 4, navigating the first month. 5, interventions and ABA therapy. And 6, moving forward with hope. This step-by-step agenda is totally designed to demystify the journey ahead of you and really help lower that anxiety.
Section 1, Understanding Autism Spectrum Disorder. Our starting point here is getting a really clear clinical understanding of what we're actually talking about.
So, the crucial point is that autism is a spectrum. As a neurodevelopmental disorder, it basically means there's a fundamental difference in the way a person's brain takes in and processes information. It affects how a child communicates, how they interact socially, and how they behave. But because it's a spectrum, it presents completely differently in literally every single individual. Some kids might just have mild challenges, while others face, more significant hurdles. There's actually a saying in the medical community, maybe you've heard it, if you've met one person with autism, you've met exactly one person with autism. No two people are exactly alike.
And hey, if you're feeling isolated right now, listen to this. According to the CDC's 2020 prevalence statistics, 1 in 36 8-year-old children received an ASD diagnosis. 1 in 36. I really want that to sink in for a second. You are absolutely not alone in this experience. There is a massive, growing community of families, experts, and support systems out there navigating this exact same reality right alongside you.
Section 2, Spotting the Early Signs. Because parents often know their children best.
As a parent or caregiver, you are on the front lines of your child's development, right? And because of that, you're usually the very first person to notice when developmental differences start to pop up. Now, to know what to look out for, it really helps to know the baseline. This timeline shows the CDC's developmental milestones, basically what 75% or more of kids can do by specific ages. So at 2 months, a child typically smiles when you talk to them. By 12 months, they're calling a parent mama or dada. By 2 years, they're saying about 50 words. At 3 years, they can hold a basic conversation with you, and by 5, they're actually writing some letters in their name. Tracking these milestones just gives you a really clear visual baseline for typical development.
But what happens when those milestones aren't quite being met? Well, here are the early red flags to watch for. These include things like limited eye contact, or maybe a child not responding to their name by 12 months. You might see delayed speech, a lack of gestures like pointing or waving, or repetitive behaviors, like rocking or hand flapping. They might also show an intense laser-like focus on specific objects, or have a strict insistence on routines and sameness. Now, seeing just one of these doesn't automatically mean autism, but if you notice a pattern, early screening is highly recommended, specifically at those 18 and 24-month well-child visits.
Okay, so if you do go in for an evaluation, what are the doctors actually looking for? The clinical diagnostic criteria really fall into 2 main buckets: social challenges and restricted or repetitive behaviors. To receive an official autism diagnosis, a child has to show persistent deficits in all 3 social areas: social emotional reciprocity, nonverbal communication, and maintaining relationships. However, and this is key, they only need to display 2 of the 4 restricted and repetitive behaviors. That could be repetitive motor movements, highly restricted interests, strict adherence to routines, or sensory over or under responsiveness.
Which leads us to Section 3, Sensory Processing versus Autism. These overlapping conditions can really confuse things. That last diagnostic criteria we just talked about, sensory responsiveness, brings up a really common point of confusion. Getting the nuance right here is absolutely critical for finding the right kind of help. It leads to the exact question so many parents find themselves Googling late at night. Is my child displaying signs of autism, or is it sensory processing disorder? And this brilliantly illustrates the distinction. Let's break it down. Sensory processing disorder, or SPD, is specifically a difficulty in detecting, modulating, and interpreting sensory stimuli. Think loud noises or super bright lights. It can trigger intense fight, flight, or freeze responses. But notably, SPD is not officially recognized in the DSM-5-TR, which is the big standard rulebook used by mental health professionals. Autism, on the other hand, is officially recognized, and while it heavily impacts communication and interaction, it's a much broader neurological disorder. So here's the main takeaway. Research shows that about 90% of autistic people have sensory processing issues, but SPD can occur completely on its own. You can absolutely have sensory issues without being on the autism spectrum.
Section 4. Navigating the first month. Because you don't have to figure this all out today.
Once you get that clear diagnosis, the immediate aftermath can feel a bit like wandering through uncharted territory. But remember, you don't need to have all the answers right this second. Let's look at how to get through these first 30 days. This checklist from the experts at Belayan Autism Services is a fantastic, actionable survival guide. Step 1. Breathe and give yourself grace. Seriously, there is no wrong way to process this news. Step 2. Schedule a follow-up with your pediatrician to ask questions and get referrals. Step 3. Begin insurance verification, because understanding your coverage early, that's going to save you a lot of stress. Step 4. Start observing and taking notes on what motivates, frustrates, or soothes your child. This is going to be absolute gold for future therapists. And Step 5. Connect with other parents. Support groups can be total lifelines. Just take this one step at a time.
Moving right along to Section 5, Interventions and ABA Therapy. Let's talk about taking action.
As you start moving out of that initial processing phase, the focus naturally shifts toward finding support. And we know from a ton of data that early intervention can make a massive, measurable difference in a child's development. So where do you actually go? Well, organizations like Help Me Grow are incredible starting points. They offer free developmental screenings and directly connect families to local resources, early interventions, and child development experts. You really do not have to navigate the medical system blindly.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that there are also powerful tools you can access right from your couch. Free online screenings like the Ages and Stages Questionnaire, or ASQ, are readily available. These online tools help you easily identify delays and offer professional guidance on the exact next steps you should be taking for your child. It's incredibly empowering.
As you explore interventions, you are inevitably going to hear about ABA therapy, or Applied Behavior Analysis. So let's define it clearly. ABA is a scientifically validated, evidence-based approach. It focuses on using positive reinforcement to teach useful, everyday life skills, improve communication, and safely reduce challenging behaviors, like self-injury or aggression. And I want to be super clear here. The goal of ABA is not to cure autism. Not at all. The goal is to empower your child, promote their independence, and help them thrive in their day-to-day life.
I know the idea of starting therapy can sound totally overwhelming. So let's break down the ABA process into 5 manageable steps. First up is the assessment, where therapists identify your child's unique strengths and needs. Second is goal setting, where specific, measurable targets are established. Third is the implementation of the actual regular therapy sessions. Fourth is progress monitoring, where they're constantly tracking development and adjusting the plan. And fifth, and honestly arguably the most important, is parent involvement. Parents collaborate closely with therapists to support and reinforce all this progress at home. It's really a team effort.
And finally, Section 6, Moving Forward with Hope.
We've covered the clinical definitions, the checklists, and the therapies. But zooming out for a second, I really want you to take this to heart. With the right support, children with autism can grow up to lead fulfilling, successful, and deeply meaningful lives. An autism diagnosis does not mean your child's future is diminished. It simply means their path is going to look a bit different than you might have originally expected. Your child is still entirely capable of joy, deep connection, and astonishing growth. I want to share this quote from Bob Jamieson that provides such a profound emotional anchor for this journey. He says, "Every moment, every day is an opportunity to start over. It's learning how to improvise, learning that you generally have to let go to move. Raising a child on the spectrum absolutely requires improvisation. It requires letting go of preconceived notions, but in doing so, you open the door to entirely new possibilities." Which leaves us with this final thought. Your child is not defined by their diagnosis. They possess a brilliantly unique way of viewing the world. So, as you take a deep breath, give yourself some grace, and begin this new journey, what unique strengths will your child show the world next? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and please remember, you do not have to walk this path alone.